Now going to take you live to Ottawa, where federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is speaking. Let's listen in.
Baisse plus rapidement. Et c'est large. Ce n'est pas basé sur un seul produit ou service. Même si on enlève l'essence, les prix sont en train d'augmenter à travers l'économie. Et ça continue d'accélérer lorsqu'on est en train de passer de plus en plus de temps du COVID. Alors, on ne peut plus blâmer le COVID.
Blame COVID. Finally, we need to notice that inflation in Canada is higher than in the US. So it's not the international aspects causing the increase in prices. As said the Governor of the Bank of Canada, they are domestic factors that are causing inflation. And as said the ex-Minister of Finance, John Manley, it is the spending and deficits of Justin Trudeau causing this inflation. What is Justin Trudeau doing? He's continuing to feed inflation with an inflationist deficit in the last budget, with $60 billion of spending, additional spending, printed and borrowed. It feeds the cost of living. Also, his carbon tax is inflationist. It increases the cost of living through the economy, because if we put tax on the agricultural, on the farmers producing the food and the truckers who are delivering it, that's a tax on food. There's also a second carbon tax that he's tried to call a rule or regulation, and he does it with the support from the Bloc. The Bloc not only voted for the second carbon tax, but its MPs said they radically wanted to increase, and I'm citing here, I'm quoting, radically increase. The Blanchet-Trudeau tax will hugely increase prices on the back of all Quebecers. And I find it ironic that a party that is so-called sovereignist is trying to take more money from Quebecers for the Trudeau government in Ottawa. Us Conservatives, we will make Quebecers masters at home, but all Quebecers will be masters of their own money. Our plan, guided by common sense, is to eliminate the inflationist deficits of Justin Trudeau, eliminate the carbon tax, remove bureaucracy to be able to build more houses and apartments that are affordable. That's common sense. It's clear that it's expensive to vote for the Bloc, and Justin Trudeau is not worth it. Only the Conservative Party has common sense to eliminate taxes and inflationist deficits and bring prices back down for Quebecers and all Canadians.
So, with today's inflation data, just inflation strikes again. Not only is inflation up, it is rising and rising faster. Inflation in Canada, after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, is not only high, but it is broad. It is across all different products and services. Whether you include or exclude food and gas, inflation is now double its target. 2 months ago, Chrystia Freeland declared victory against inflation and asked everyone to give her a pat on the back. Since that time, the inflation rate has risen 43%. It is interesting that the further and further we move away from COVID, the more and more inflation is rising, which continues to prove what I said all along, which is that COVID had nothing to do with inflation. It is entirely a made in Canada, made by a government-made inflation that is the result of deficits and taxes on Canadians. And it's no longer just me saying it. Everyone has slowly but grudgingly come on to my point of view. The Governor of the Bank of Canada has said that the deficits are driving inflation. The former Liberal Finance Minister, John Manley, says deficits are driving inflation. Even Chrystia Freeland said that deficits pour fuel on the inflationary fire right before she decided to pour $60 billion of that fuel on that fire. So this is more proof that Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost. But neither is Jagmeet Singh. And this is, I'd like to take a moment to talk about greed and price gouging. The greed and price gouging of the Liberal NDP government, which takes more and more money from hardworking Canadians and raises the cost of government, which raises the cost of everything. After 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, everything costs more. Work doesn't pay. Housing costs have doubled. And it gets worse every single day. What is most terrifying is that the inflation Trudeau has ballooned will put further pressure on the Bank of Canada to increase rates further at a time when Canadians are the most indebted people in the entire G7. What are people going to do? How are they going to pay their mortgages if Trudeau's inflation forces the bank to raise rates yet again? We can't afford that. And that's why we need to replace this costly coalition that takes your money, taxes your food, and doubles your housing costs with a common-sense conservative government that frees people to earn powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. We will do it with a common-sense plan that includes axing the NDP Liberal carbon tax, capping spending and cutting waste to eliminate the inflationary deficits, and incentivizing municipalities to remove bureaucracy so that we can build homes that Canadians can afford. Thank you very much.
Monsieur Poilievre, vous voulez éliminer le déficit. Selon les années de prédiction, on parle de 30
Based on prediction, we're talking 30 to 40 billion per year. That's about 8% of government spending. Where would you cut specifically to eliminate deficit? The Bank of Infrastructure, the ArriveCan app. We will also put a dollar-for-dollar law that would mandate finding a dollar of saving for every new dollar of spending. We will stop adding spending. Don't forget that a year ago, the Trudeau government promised that it was possible to balance the budget by 2028. So that was their own promise in their budget. If it was also irresponsible a year ago, why did they promise it? Because it's possible if we stop the increase in the cost of government year after year, if we eliminate waste, we can balance the budget. We did it when the Conservative government was in power. We were able to balance the budget and look at the prices, interest and taxes low.
On the issue of India, does Canada need to change its relationship with India in light of the intelligence the Prime Minister shared yesterday?
I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all of the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on that.
Response? They just expelled an Indian diplomat. Should they do more in response to this news?
I think we need to see more facts. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement, and I will just emphasize that he didn't tell me any more in private than he told Canadians in public, so we want to see more information.
What is the risk if he doesn't provide more information or these allegations are found somehow to be untrue or uncredible? What is the risk?
Real.
But what specific information, what specific facts do you think Canadians and yourself need to know in this situation?
We need to have the evidence that that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions he made yesterday.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
I would have to have more evidence to make a judgment on that.
Okay.
I do find it interesting that he knew about vast foreign interference by Beijing for many years at the same time as Beijing had kept 2 Canadian citizens hostage, and he said nothing and he did nothing. Just very, very interesting that was the approach he took in that case.
Are you favorable to financing a national program and universal for drug insurance? We need to recognize that Justin Trudeau is not even able to deliver a passport. We don't trust an incompetent. Are you favorable? You're giving yes and no's to everybody. Yes or no? It's easy to say we're not going to create programs. We want to reduce the cost of government. Talking about a national drug program, will it remove the coverage that Canadians already have? The 90% that Canadians already have, the drug insurance they already have, a national program, will it force employers to cancel those programs for those employees? We know that in Ontario, when Miss Wynne set up a program, what did they do? They paid the bill by removing drugs for childhood cancers. So they've reduced the available medications for hospitals for children with cancer. And what the Liberal really like. So we need to see the details, because when the government creates big programs, there's usually more victims than winners.
Sanctions against India. Do you think there should be sanctions against India at this point?
We need to see the facts.
We've been listening to federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking to reporters, taking many shots at the Prime Minister's policies.